This is the Mind Body Detox Podcast, where we discuss all things integrative health and wellness, interviewing folks from all over the world, sharing insights and wisdom for how to live a healthier life in mind, body, and spirit. All right, Dr. Jeffrey Gross, thank you for coming on to the Mind Body Detox Podcast. We want to really just start introducing you and have you share a little bit about your background and what led you to specialize in regenerative medicine and specifically stem cell therapy. We haven't had this topic on the show, so we're really excited to interview about this topic.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. It's my honor and pleasure to be here. The short story is this was a little bit of an accident that was caused, by my own education and by my patient's insistence. So I was practicing traditional sick care medicine in the neurosurgery field. I'm a spine doctor, spine surgery, spine medicine, everything spine for over 2 decades. And my patients would come to me and say, the injections didn't help, therapies didn't help enough, and I don't want the medicines. What do you got next? And I said, well, we could talk surgery. And they said, well, I'm not ready for surgery. I'd say, great, because I really didn't want to have to offer it to you. And they said, well, what else? How about this? How about that? How about stem cells? And lucky I have some undergraduate background in all this. And I said, you know what? It's been a while since I looked at that. Let's go back and take another look at it. A lot has changed since I was an undergraduate. So I retrained. I stopped going to the annual neurosurgery spine meetings. And I started going to stem cell and regenerative medicine meetings and all kinds of things and said, this is a tool I can add to my practice and help people without surgery. And it's blossomed into so much more. It's almost everything I do now.
For those of you who don't know anything about stem cells, I was introduced to it about 10 years ago when one of my clients, I'm a massage therapist, was working with the beginning stages of this stem cell treatment therapy. So really, what is stem cell therapy and how has it progressed from where it started?
Well, stem cell therapy is basically is using something we've learned from biology, how a person is made, how a person grows and develops and maintains and replaces and restores, and taking that knowledge and using it as a treatment. So, tricking an older body maybe, or a degenerated part or an organ or a cartilage, and using that knowledge and those biologics. So, we call them products, but they're really not made except in biology. So we use those to re-stimulate the body's own ability to make and repair, as it's always had. It just kind of loses it because we get exposed to the environment. We get exposed to things in our water and our food and electromagnetic waves and bad thoughts and neurostress and all this and that. And our cells just don't do what they used to do. And we need to tap back into a more active source of that. That's what stem cell therapy is all about, whether it's using cells or growth factors or cell signaling particles we call exosomes. So things like this.
So when I've understood what stem cells were, they are undifferentiated cells that then can be transformed into any type of cell in the body that makes up any of the organs and tissues. Is that correct? Or am I mistaken about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of stem cell 101 is we have these bank of undifferentiated cells in our body waiting when called upon to like soldiers ready to be called to battle, right? So where do you need them? Oh, the liver has had a lot of damage. Come to the liver, become a liver cell. And that is an active process that we maintain throughout our life. Even elder people have stem cells. They're just not as good and not as active at doing what they did when they were 20 years old, or even 3 years old, or even in utero. And there are different kinds of stem cells. So those are basically what we call mesenchymal stromal cells for the most part. They're adult, multipotent cells, but there are even more powerful ones that are called embryonic, which we are only using in the research area now. Those aren't really available in the America. You can get them in other countries.
And then what are the current medical conditions that we can effectively address with stem cells? Are there any ailments or specific patient improvements, things that you see in your practice?
Well, let me speak to what medical evidence, medical research, journal articles, and what we're doing clinically show, because I'm not allowed to make any claims that we're curing or treating because the FDA has not yet approved any of these for marketing claims. So we can do them, but I don't want to make any false claims, even though I can show you the evidence and the examples all day long, and we're doing this more and more, and it's all over, even the US now, even though the US is late to the party, right? Europe and Asia have been doing this for decades. The low-hanging fruit would be osteoarthritis or degenerative joint type issues, so wearing down of the cartilage. Most of my patients have some type of musculoskeletal problem: spine, knees, hips, shoulders, fingers, thumbs, toes, what have you. We're doing that. It could be injury related. It could be just accumulation of wear and tear. It could be some of both. And we do it even, low grade all the way up through, bone on bone type degeneration. And we're seeing, some amazing results. It does take 6 to 12 months for that type of result to be achieved, but it's much better than joint replacement surgery. No downtime, no risks, no pain from that. There's a brief soreness from the injection, but that should be a no-brainer.
Now, is the treatment always an injection, or what are the types of applications or delivery of the system for stem cells?
Yeah, for joint and structural problems, it's an injection. For people who come in with hyperinflamed syndromes like autoimmune problems, long COVID, Lyme's issues, diseases of aging / diseases of inflammation like coronary vascular disease, MS, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, all have an inflammatory component, even multiple sclerosis, all these things. If there's hyperinflammation, then we can do intravenous delivery, so IV.
And I think I've heard recently someone was doing stem cell topical, and I know that might not be your area of expertise, but is that something that they are using, and what is the uses for that?
Yeah, that's not really useful in a clinical setting. I mean, the skin is such a good barrier. You don't get cells passing through your skin. In fact, we're using more and more something called stem cell derived exosomes, which is really the business end of the stem cells, but they're less expensive. They penetrate the body's tissues better. They cross the blood-brain barrier, for example, and they're doing the work of the stem cells. So we're using more of those these days. And even those, we have some difficulty getting them through the skin. The skin is really a waterproof barrier for the most part. And water is smaller than any of these things, right? A water molecule. So it's difficult to get stuff through the skin. So if someone tells you they've got a patch or a cream and it's stem cell, do your homework. Probably not too effective.
Now, traditionally, there's a lot of research saying that sometimes medications and supporting delivery of molecules or systems across the blood-brain barrier can be challenging. So tell us about that. So not everyone out there listening might be aware of that.
Yeah, so if we gave you something in your vein, the brain and spinal cord, which are part of the central nervous system, may not get much because they're surrounded in a few membranes called the meninges. And you may have heard that word meninges before, because if you've ever heard of someone with an inflamed or infected nervous system, it's called meningitis. So your meninge word is right in there. But it's a very durable barrier, just like the skin. It's like another skin on the inside. Your nervous system is encased like the nucleus of a cell. It's an additional layer of protection from the cell, from the insides of a cell. So stem cells are too big really to pass into the nervous system if I give them to you in your vein. But the stem cells make these signaling small bubbles or vesicles called exosomes, and those exosomes are small enough to pass. And they're the very reason why a pregnant woman is having wonderful skin and great growth of her hair and great growth of her nails, because she's getting a daily dose of the womb producing these stem cell derived exosomes crossing through the placental barrier, which is somewhat like the blood-brain barrier. The stem cells really don't get out through her. The baby's cells don't get out because, remember, they're chimeric. They're only half her genetic material. The father is the other half. But the exosomes are neutral. They don't have genetic material or DNA. So they are small, they can get through, and the mother benefits. So she has a survival advantage, right? We want mothers to live so they can take care and feed their newborn.
So what about the common misconceptions then? So I think there are some myths that I've heard surrounding stem cell therapy, such as stem cells only come from embryos, or that the therapy can cure any condition. Could you clarify some of the misconceptions?
Yeah. First, I don't know, if big pharma's putting out this stuff or what, but we don't take anything from embryos. There is some research in another country where they're looking at certain things, but all the biologics, the regenerative biologics, the stem cells, the stem cell derived exosomes, which come from amniotic fluid, the growth factors, all of these materials come from a donor who has just delivered a baby by C-section. Congratulations, it's a boy, here you go. What are you going to name it? By the way, can we have all this stuff we were going to throw away? Can we have your placenta and your amniotic fluid and your umbilical cord? That's how that goes. It's more detailed than that, but there's nothing unethical about it. Everyone has to be a sign off on it. It has to be tested and screened through, ironically, an FDA certified process by a lab who's following all those protocols and tests and in a clean room and all that.
I guess my next question there would be, if someone is a candidate for stem cell therapy, are there any contraindications, any specific conditions or factors that would make someone unsuitable for this type of treatment?
Yeah, well, the two main things that would give us reason to not do it is, first, there's a reason we can't do an injection or an IV or something like they're on significant blood thinners, and we don't want to cause bleeding or a problem. There are other ways to deliver regenerative biologics, not so much the stem cells, but we get down to the smaller particles like the stem cell-derived exosomes as really the business end of stem cell therapy. Those can be delivered also by nasal spray, and they get through the blood-brain barrier to the brain, and by breathing treatments. A lot of our people with lung issues, we do breathing treatments. The other reason we wouldn't do something is with these rather generic sort of perinatal donated products is if someone had active cancer. Now, there's research that goes either way that says, well, these things can help your immune system fight the cancer. And there's some things that say, well, it also can help the cancer grow. So we're on the fence there. However, we have something special for the people fighting cancer, and that's called natural killer cell derived exosomes. And if you've ever heard of natural killer cells, they're a very small percentage of your white blood cells system, your immune system. Their job is to go around through the body and remove accidental messed up cells like senescent cells, aka zombie cells, which are sort of the older, leaky cells, leaking toxins, taking up space and resources, but not contributing back to the health of the body, right? And then the other cells that we make all the time by accident are cancer cells. We have genetic accidents in the body. They divide and you have some messed up cell. Well, most of our life, those get removed by these natural killer cells. Well, as it turns out, people with a cancer diagnosis tend to have a lower population of natural killer cells for whatever reason. Now, I don't know if that's the cause or just a correlation. Did they lose the ability to self-police their accidental cancer cells? And that's what happened. Maybe. But we now have access to these donated natural killer cell exosomes, and we can use those in an augmentative way to help people prevent cancer, fight cancer, stay in remission, maybe help recover from chemotherapy if they're still doing that, more traditional treatment. So that's a very specific thing that we have that's only recently become available to us.
Now, if you are a mother that's about to give birth and maybe you're giving birth C-section, is this something that is a elective, or they're asking you, or is it just something that hey, we're going to take it because we have it? How does that work?
No. You have it. It's your product. It's your body. It's your control of this. So usually most larger institutions offer or request it because it's part of it's very popular now. For many years and still now today, mothers are asked, do you want to bank your umbilical cord cell for your baby? But you can do so much more with that now for your own self. So the only downside to that is there's a cost in baking those tissues where you're doing it, so you have matched cells. If God forbid your child ever gets leukemia and needs to have a complete bone marrow replacement, which requires matching. But you can also use it for family and friends for other purposes. There are people banking their tissues now makes sense to me because, when that child becomes 50, 60 years old, has a knee arthritis and needs to have something, if they have their own tissues from birth in a freezer somewhere, wow, they can just tap from that.
That's incredible. Now that brings up a question. Now you're talking about the donor match. With the work that you're doing, is there specific types of treatments for different types of tissue repair that you have to have a specific match that matches your blood, anything like that? Okay.
For the vast
That's
majority of regenerative medicine, you do not need to match. Stem cells, and even more so, exosomes are sort of neutral, naive. They don't have any markers or serial number type things on them that say they're from a particular person. So you can have someone else's exosomes and your body thinks they're yours. It's bioidentical, just like bioidentical hormone replacement. This is bioidentical, exosomes or regenerative medicine. So what's in there, the peptides, the growth factors that come in there are no different than your body makes compared to someone else's. Stem cells, we talk about there could be a risk of rejection. We've just never seen it. I've never read about it. I've never seen it. We do mention that as a risk, but cells do potentially have surface markers, but stem cells are so naive because remember, they're undifferentiated. They haven't been assigned anything yet. So they're sort of just going, here I am fresh out. What do you need? Where do you need me? So they're pretty immunoprivileged or immunomodulated, meaning they're not there to be recognized as foreign. So you can easily use someone else's stuff without question.
So then I have a question. So if these undifferentiated cells are just hanging out, how did they research what did they signal to say, can we make this now a brain cell or a neuron or, a liver cell? How did they then use, what type of signaling or communication system do they send it to the stem cells? Like, how did they do that with research? I'm just so curious about that.
Well, there are, your body releases, your cells in your body release small peptides and factors and chemokines and paracrines, all these words mean little proteins and peptides that call for help, call for specific help. Send the immune system, I'm under attack by a bacteria. Hey, we have damage and inflammation. Send me stem cells, send me some cells. I need the soldiers. And when those cells are circulating and they get called for, just like if you got stung by a bee and you have an immune reaction to it, your body releases histamines and things, and it causes you to get itchy and scratchy and red and puffy, and it's calling for a cellular response. Just like if you cut yourself on a barbed wire fence, same thing, you get an immune response. So this is no different, and it's part of your bloodstream, these cells. So they get called for by these, and we're learning more and more about these chemical peptides and messengers, and that's why there's been such an explosion in the peptide world, if you follow that at all. All these different peptides now that can be useful for different things to reawaken some of those signals in your body that aren't responding like they did when you were more youthful.
So if someone is out there that they have maybe, I think there's different stages of disc degeneration, correct? So if they're saying, I'm really, I think it's stage 4, is that the most extreme stage of disc degeneration? Is it 4?
Yeah, cartilage wear and tear goes from, really 0 to 4. 0 is normal.
0 to 4.
And 4 is what you kind of call bone on bone. There's very little cartilage left, if any.
So I'm kind of curious now, if there's treatments for someone that's different stages, would they potentially see, like you said, 6 to 12 months, full regeneration, 50%? What does the outcomes look like for that?
We haven't seen full regeneration in discs yet. Discs are a little more tricky than a knee joint or a regular joint because discs are made of 2 different types of cartilage. So there are some things coming. We're hot on the trail of that because I'm a spine guy by history. So there are what are called hydrogels. So you'll have one kind of, exosome or stem cell in the hydrogel for the inside of the disc called the nucleus, and a more typical exosome or mesenchymal derived exosome for the annulus, the ring around the disc, which is a more typical cartilage. So we're engineering that, and I'm hot on the trail of that. That's stuff we do all the time. But for other joints, yeah, listen, the more degeneration there is, the higher grade, the grades 3, the grade 4, take longer to recover and require more dosing and may potentially need more than one dose because most of these treatments for joints are one and done.
Wow. Now, when someone is experiencing symptoms, a lot of times I think in our culture, we push off the symptoms, right? With pain relievers, anti-inflammatories,
Yeah.
and that's sort of like these initial stages of degeneration. Sometimes it's just inflammation from an injury or something like that. But how would someone trying to be preventative to maybe jump on these treatments before they get worse? What type of things would they want to ask their medical provider to look at so they can see before it's, because sometimes they say, well, we'll give you the pain meds first, and then, maybe we'll do some x-rays or MRIs. And how can we be more preventative with this process?
Yeah, you're talking about the health insurance driven cookbook. You go in to see your
Yeah.
orthopedic doc and they say, well, we can't give you a cortisone shot because you haven't tried naproxen or Aleve first, right? So the doctors aren't making the decisions anymore, right? The bean counters are. They're just cogs in the system. So you're not going to get this in your regular watered down sick care system. You have to seek it. So, and it's important to get these options. But listen, you're right. We're masking inflammation with over-the-counter anti-inflammatories, and I'm guilty of it too. For most of my career, I've been recommending this to people, and I've taken them myself. Now, I shy away from them as much as I can, but there's a role for them here and there.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not big fans of cortisone injections anymore, even though there is a role in acute inflammation if it's severe enough. But repeat cortisone injections actually work against the immune system from repairing a joint. So I think people who are smart and logical and biological want to look at, well, what can I do to repair? Because if you're 3 years old and you injure your cartilage, it's going to heal. I want to heal like that, right? I'm 56. I want to heal like that, So what does that take? And what it takes is a little bit of that young biologics in the right place, even if you're a low grade degeneration, low-grade cartilage wear and tear. I mean, that's getting ahead of this. This is easy to do. People can use their flexible spending accounts or health savings accounts, but with the exosome costs being much lower than stem cells, in looking at the big costs of where this is headed, if you don't help it heal, it's really not that expensive now to come in for an injection and get your knee or your shoulder, whatever, back to where it should be before it was injured.
I love that. Let's talk a little bit more about Recelebrate. This is your company.
Yes.
I'd love to know more about that and how it looks for as far as working with you and location, and that's something I'm sure that listeners are really wanting to learn about.
Thank you. Well, through the magic of modern technology, the interwebs, as the kids call them, most of our patients are remote to us. I'm here in the greater Las Vegas, Nevada area, and most of my patients are spread out throughout the country and some from outside the country. And we start by video. We get to know you. We want to make sure if we're going to look at an option involving regenerative medicine, that your body's already optimized, that you're eating right, you're sleeping right, you're exercising to the extent you can. Of course, some people with the joint problems cannot, that you're taking the right supplements, that you are doing everything to reduce inflammation in your body system first, because the regenerative medicine appears to have more benefit or easier benefit if we stack the deck in its favor in a healthy person. So we meet with you on that. We may need to get labs. We may need to get MRI scans, and not just any MRI. We're very picky about the type of MRI, the quality of the resolution of the MRI. We know how to order off the secret menu to get certain imaging that brings out the targets for us. And then I order those. We can have them shipped here, or I can log into them and we can share screen and I can show people their MRIs. And only then, if we correlate symptoms and problems to findings on the MRI and say, hey, I think you're a candidate, do we invite people to come here to Las Vegas and we do the injection here. And then we follow with them remotely after they go back home. So that's kind of how it works. We came up with the name Recelebrate for the practice after I really was trying to get out of the sick care, industrialized, watered down system, which is really not run by doctors anymore. And the doctors that are stuck in it are employed and told what to do and disincentivized from treating people. So I think the oath of Hippocrates really stuck with me, and I want to help those. So we call it Recelebrate because you're celebrating the renewal of your cells. And, the people that seek us and find us are already sort of have heard of stem cells, are interested in it, have done their homework, come with great questions like you have today, and we dig in, and that's what it's all about.
I love it. So I'd love to learn a little bit more about the lifestyle factors, because this is so huge. If someone's starting out and they haven't made any of these lifestyle choices or changes, what are the things that you're commonly seeing with people with lack of diet, lack of movement?
Yeah.
What are the things that you really are starting to, you're kind of like across the board, this is common, like even just drinking more water and hydrating. What are the things you commonly see?
Yeah, we're seeing very poor diets, a lot of seed oils or fried foods and, foods of convenience, too many carbs, too much gluten. All these are pro-inflammatory, too much sugar, which is pro-inflammatory. We're seeing people who are not really exercising strategically well. They might be doing stuff, but it's not useful. They don't have the right muscle mass, very low levels of protein. People are just not getting enough protein to maintain their muscle mass. And muscle mass and bone density are associated with longevity. So you got to maintain your moving parts, and because your body will last longer if it knows it needs to survive and move. Once you're sedentary, it just says, well, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Just like a senescent cell, right? So we look at that. We look at hormones. We're big fans of bioidentical hormone optimization, both in women and in men. We're seeing low testosterone in men at early ages. Why? Not sure. Is it in the food, the pesticides, who knows? And in women, the earlier we catch you, the premenopause, that's when you should start. And these aren't the horse urine stuff that the prior generation got. We're talking about bioidentical, actual estrogens, actual progestins, and even testosterone in women. It's very popular. You see Halle Berry talking about testosterone replacement, what that's done for her too. So women need testosterone too. And men have estrogen. We don't usually replace it because the more testosterone we give them, they overflow into estradiol, which is an estrogen. But that's a very big component, actually, of anti-aging medicine in general, which overlaps with regenerative quite closely. And then all of this falls under the heading of suppressing chronic inflammation. So we look at diet. Are you eating a healthy, real food, or a diet, less prepared foods, less preserved foods? Are you supplementing, right? Supplements are there for a reason. And, I have my daily example here. This is my lunchtime prepackaged. For those of you just listening to this and not seeing the video, I have a little Ziploc style baggie, little mini bag with probably 20, 25 different capsules and supplements I take daily. And I didn't do this my whole life. Like I'm looking at things going, wow, I'm not getting this in my diet. I would have to eat 12 servings of leafy green vegetables to get enough magnesium or whatever. So I do all that. Sleep is a big one. People are not having a sleeping time ritual. They're on screens, even in bed, and you're screwing with the cortisol system. You're screwing with circadian rhythms. So we're looking at that and grounding now. There's so much electromagnetism. I'm drinking hydrogen water. A lot of our people have pH imbalance or a little bit acidic from all the inflammation. We need to focus on more basic, being less acidic, and you can do that through some hydrogen water and grounding. And then I think I hit on everything there. And then maybe just relaxation. People are stressed and they're releasing cortisol. Cortisol stimulates the pro-inflammatory release of molecules in your body, so you're always inflamed. So you're not going to last as long. You're gonna rust quicker, biologically rust quicker.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a national approved board certified massage therapy instructor, and most of the work we're doing we have a lot of inflammation we feel and we palpate in the body, and we can have people come in and get massage therapy over and over again. But the holistic model is where we're like, we really got to look at your diet, you got to look at your stress, all these different things that impact that. So I'm curious, with the integration of either exercise science for structural integration of posture and arrangement of making sure the joints are fully ready because if you're going to continue to wear and tear with the lack of structural integrity, how does that integrate into your practice?
Yeah, I mean, the beauty of these like joint injections and things we do is there's no downtime. You can be on them the next day. So we want you on them. We want you stimulating the mechanoreceptors. We want you to release the healing paracrine enzymes, chemokines, the little molecules that call for help. Hey, let's get this fixed. Because we want that healing response to start anew, because the acute healing response is the good one. It's the chronic one that leaves us in trouble. So we're big on that. It should be activity and movement are key. I mean, we have to support those. So I've become more integrative in my approach, even though I wasn't trained in this, and I'm trying to push medical schools to add some of this to their curriculum. They're just not move there because they're so sponsored by things, incentivized in other ways, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's interesting if someone wasn't adjusting or looking at their spinal alignment or their structural alignment, like with just even forward head posture, how it wear and tears on the shoulder and the neck, you're going to potentially have more degenerative issues over time I would say even if you're getting the treatment. So that would be a root cause potential to make sure you're addressing that as well, along with the
Yeah,
treatments.
that's a great point. We can help you fix something, but if you continue to stress it in the wrong way, then you're just contributing to accelerating the problem to come back. So you're absolutely right. Yeah, like here we are sitting in front of a podcast, and we know we need to get up and move, right? We need to stretch. We need to do things that are the opposing movements to our posture, to our neck, particularly with these days with cell phones and everything. Everything's in front of us. And if it's behind us, you turn it around and put it in front of you. So we really are too forward with the neck. Most of the patients I've treated in the neck problems over the last 20 to 30 years, they're either injured or they've suffered from too much downward flexion, forward chronic stress.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to just briefly touch on, you talked about the immune system, so like autoimmune response. So if someone has their immune system's overactive, whether it's creating symptoms like fibromyalgia, or they had Lyme disease, or they had something like that they maybe have treated, but they're still having this overactive immune response. Is that something that you work with as well? And what's the outcomes for that, if so?
Yeah, I mean, we've shown suppression in the inflammatory biomarkers in people with autoimmune issues, generally speaking, rheumatoid arthritis, thyroiditis, things like that, others. We do like to help take a fresh look at the root cause. All too often we find people with these syndromes that I've got thyroiditis, my doctor did the thyroid labs and they put me on thyroid medicine. Well, that doesn't help us find the root cause. So we might do a deeper look, because these things late in life all of a sudden appear. It doesn't make sense, right? So what stimulated that? Is there a parasite? Is there, some exposure? Is there something else that triggered this? Sometimes it's just the hormonal changes that haven't been replaced, because your regular doctor is not going to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to point that out because I know we were talking about joints, and just wanted to make sure that there's an awareness for the audience too. There's other things that you guys treat. So other than the joints and, autoimmune, what other things for symptoms or conditions that we want to make sure we mention here that people who are listeners might be able to relate to and identify with?
Well, yeah, besides structural stuff, we see people recovering from stroke and heart attack who are looking for a boost, or recovering from other injuries. I have healthy people come in and do it preventatively. Biohackers and myself, I do it. We do IVs every few months, my wife and I. We have people that want sports performance and improvement in HRV. For those of you wearing your medical tech that has HRV, heart rate variability, very sensitive health metric. We've seen improvements in that just with the IV alone, because most of our young healthy people already feel energy and stuff like that. So we see improvement in neurological issues, maybe people with balance problems, people with cognitive slowness, memory issues. And again, if there's an inflammatory component, this will likely help. It also stimulates the stem cell activity in your body. It's one way. Other ways, are exercise, fasting, other forms of hormesis. For your listeners, there's a slight stress on the body cells to build resilience. So hot sauna, cold plunge, fasting, high intensity exercise, all forms of hormesis. So they stimulate stem cell release. You can also do this through really good plant-based supplements. We now are working on a fruit-based exosome supplement that you can take. You can get exosomes from bone broth. You can get exosomes from chicken soup. Why do so many cultures have chicken soup if you're sick? Because of the exosomes you're getting from the chicken stock, from the bone marrow, from the stem cells in there. You can, a lot of, just bone marrow itself is a delicacy. A lot of fancy restaurants will do it as an appetizer, perhaps, and it's super healthy. You can get it from colostrum. Even milk has exosomes. Colostrum has a way more exosomes. And these are mother stem cells derived exosomes that you can imbibe. Now, you don't get as many when you imbibe them because there is some digestion of them in the belly, but they're not as good as like an IV of human stem cells. And listen, this isn't new. In the veterinary medicine, they've been doing this for decades. If you have invested in a very expensive thoroughbred horse, about stem cells, right? Those guys were using stem cells and these kinds of things for many years. And your pets can get them too. Well, so can we. So if it's good enough for our pets, then it's good enough for us.
That's amazing. I just want to share also, I think it's good where you're located at, because there's a lot of easy access to the Vegas area for people who are traveling. I think it's a incredible easy access to that. And the affordability too, because medical insurance is not covering this, but the HSA, FSA cards, it's a really great that you have that for anyone that's concerned about the financial constraints at all. But as far as anything else that you want to share today about your company, about working with you, about any resources, we'll share them all in the show notes and links to you. But
Oh,
anything else
thank
we
you.
didn't cover? Yeah.
No, we just listen. Don't take no for an answer. If your regular doctor doesn't give you this option, if you have knee pain and you see your orthopedic doctor, you say, hey doc, you told me I may need a knee replacement if this gets worse and worse, or more cortisone shots, or lubrication shots. What about stem cells? And they say, oh, it's not ready, and they just not ready yet to talk to you about it. They haven't been retrained. They were trained years ago, just like me,
Yes.
and by people trained 2 decades earlier, and that just hasn't moved forward. So either seek out multiple opinions, talk to people who do offer this, and you can go to your web browser and type in stem cells and your knee pain, or stem cells and whatever you got, and your city name, and see if there's someone near you, and make an appointment and go talk to those people. We're all over, because I go to these different meetings now, and there are plenty of us. Now, we're not allowed to advertise on Google or Facebook, so you won't find as many advertisements out there. Why? Because something that hasn't just been opened up in government FDA related stuff. So we can't advertise. Even if we advertise in a compliant way, we can't advertise there. We can't have websites and stuff, but you have to search it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll just echo that, in all the industries, if you're not getting answers, I think it's important. And if people are saying, well, that's not a thing, like for 10 years, I was working with my son's gut health for his own mental health and his being on the autism spectrum. And his psychiatrist was like, I don't know, this is, granola hippie stuff. And then like 10 years later, she goes, I just went to a conference that was talking about the connection between mood and your psychological health and your gut health. And I said,
Yep.
that's, just waiting for you to catch up. Right. So that actually brings me to the question. If we're working with chronic inflammation and brain inflammation, are there any changes in mood for people when they're working with stem cells as well?
I haven't investigated that enough to ask people, because most of the people seeing me already have an open mindset. Yeah, I'm interested in stem cells. I've been reading about it. They're already kind of happy. So I don't think I have a population of people I can draw from where I can say that. I can tell you people have had IV stem cells, IV exosomes, said my hair is growing better, just like the pregnant women. My skin is better, all kinds of things. But I don't know about mood per se. So I'm going to have to answer, I don't know.
Okay, perfect. And then we'll share information about your company, and everyone can get research their own and connect with you on all the different platforms that you're on. But there's two final questions I have for you. We ask every guest when they come on the show for the first time. First question is, if you could detox one thing in your life or the world right now, what would it be?
It'd probably sugar. There's way too much sugar, refined sugar. It's killing us, making us obese, and it's not the only thing, but that's an easy fix.
I love it. I'm a recovering sugar addict. I went sugar-free 10 years ago, and not artificial sweeteners, guys. We have episodes on that. You guys can listen on that, but I'm a big proponent of that too. Second question is, what is your favorite product, self-care indulgence, or activity for your own self-care at this time?
Well, it varies, because I'm things change, right? But I would say my favorite product is my gym membership right now. I got reinvigorated. My wife's like, let's go. We get up every morning. We're there at 6. We're doing Pilates. We're doing cardio HIIT. We're doing resistance. We're going at it hard. So it's been like, I don't know, 2 months in now. So that's my favorite product. Everyone should exercise. You don't need to go to the gym for that. You can do it at home. That's probably my biggest, I'd say, indulgence, because I love the results. Like, I have muscle mass. I can feel it's developing again, because I think I was losing some of it.
Yeah, I love that too. My gym membership for me, we have a sauna at our gym. I wish we had a cold plunge at our gym, but we don't. But those are my two favorite things for myself as well.
Sauna's awesome. I love the sauna. You gotta do it hot though. 20 to 25 minutes, 3 to 5 days a week, 170 plus Fahrenheit.
Yes. Yes. It's good. I mean, you really do start to acclimate and get to be able to be in there
Yeah.
longer and longer
Yeah.
if you're really doing it consistently.
Yep.
So wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate you, Dr. Gross. And again, if you guys have any questions at all, reach out directly. And thanks again for listening, and be well until next time, my friends. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Mind Body Detox podcast. If you love this podcast, share it with others and leave us a review. Your reviews help us more than you know and supports us continuing to make episodes and being heard from all over the world. You can also follow the link in our show notes to submit a topic that you would like to hear on the show.